hello and welcome everybody. And we're going to jump straight into it. Without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, put a massive digital round of applause together for Mr. Darryn Binder. Darryn Binder, how are you doing?
Hey, what's happening, Uncle Rob? And how's it going, everyone? Thanks for joining in.
Shame. So you're feeling a bit under the weather. Sounds like you're suffering.
Yeah, I know. Yes, yesterday my nose just blocked up, and I've been feeling a little bit under the weather today. So just been taking it easy. I think coming from South Africa back to the heat this side caught me out a little bit.
Is it hot that side? I know South Africa wasn't the warmest place in the world, but certainly where I am in the UK, we're having a heat wave here.
But it is cooking here in Andorra, and these places are built for the snow, so it's really been hot here. And I don't have a swimming pool, so I went to the shop yesterday, got a little blow-up one, and I've been laying in it outside, trying to keep everything chilled.
Typical South African love it. Go to the shop and buy a blow-up pool and fill it with water. That's how we do it. Daz, obviously you had a little bit of time off in South Africa. The meet and greet was fantastic. Heard people just absolutely raving about it. Tell us a little bit about your summer break so far. I know you guys, it's called a summer break, but not really a break. Your media stuff and looking after the fans does take up a little bit of time.
Yeah, no, it's been really good so far. I got back to South Africa for 2 weeks. I had a really, really good time. I managed to do quite a bit. I managed to ride at the Monday Club at Kyalami, which was really cool on my R1. So really enjoyed that. I got out to my go-karts, which was really fun as well. Obviously, just catching up with all the friends and the family. And then, the meet and greet, which was probably the highlight of the little holiday. It was super cool. I mean, it was really a lot more than what I expected. So many fans came through. It was such a cool vibe. Really thanks to everybody who joined us there. It was really awesome, and it was a long, busy day.
Yeah, it did. It looked like a really busy day. But well done to everyone involved. Yourself, Brad, Smashed in Industries, Sean, Yamaha South Africa, KTM South Africa. It really was awesome. And we're going to have a chat with Brad tomorrow night. So keep a lookout for that link, and we'll ask him how his time went there. But Daz, we all know you had this big jump from Moto3 to MotoGP. You've said it countless times. It is a big jump. We know the jump, but just give us a quick roundup of your season so far. Obviously, there's been times where you have proven a lot of people wrong. I think maybe surprised yourself, maybe in some instances, but you've also had the low of where, it hasn't quite gone to plan. You haven't got the results in that you want. So just give us a quick little roundup of your first half of your season in MotoGP.
Yeah, I think it started off really well, better than what I could have imagined. I thought I was going to struggle more in the beginning than what I did, but the struggle definitely came. I think by the time we got to Le Mans was probably my worst race. But obviously everything is a learning curve for me. I just figure something out one weekend, we move on to the next weekend, and you start at zero again, and you got to start all over again. Everything you thought you learned maybe doesn't work at that track because of the grip levels have changed or whatever the difference is. But obviously everybody around me knew that it was going to be tough at some point, and luckily they all just there giving their 100%, trying to help me and trying to learn as much as we can together to do our best. And luckily, even though when we struggled, we managed to pick ourselves up and come out of it. And I feel like I've done some fairly good races, and I've been happy with some of the results. Obviously, I want more. I mean, every rider always wants more. But I feel like I'm getting to the point now where I'm really starting to understand how things are starting to work, understand the bike a little bit more, all the electronics, how the races work. It's long races in the GP bike, and there's a lot that plays into it, especially depending on the track and the heat and what tires we have and stuff like that. So slowly but surely, I've been figuring things out, and really looking forward to the second half of the season. I just want to go out there, do my absolute best. I think right now my main goal is to fight in the top 10. I would love to finish inside the top 10 again. I came pretty close in Barcelona this year, which was really cool. And I feel like slowly but surely we're heading in the right direction.
So Daz, just for everyone out there, I've also been exposed to a lot being in the paddock. You do get a lot more of a feel and an understanding for things when you're in the paddock. So your Yamaha is obviously one of the bikes from last year. A championship winning bike in effect that won the championship last year. You've got access to Fabio Quartararo's data from last year. It just sounds so easy to just plug that in and try and make it work. But, looking at the data and your data and overlapping it, where are you losing out the most at the moment? Because it seems that like the fast tracks, the Catalunya, the Mugellos, it's never easy, but you found it easier to go faster because there wasn't this hard braking, stopping the bike, trying to understand the engine braking, like a Lamar track that's always stop, start. You can't really get into a flow. The flow tracks, the speed, straight away at Mugello after your session, you were at 346 k's an hour. How do you get that right? But then at Lamar, where it's more start and stop, you struggle a bit. Is it a case of just understanding how the bike works in the slower turns?
Yeah, it is strange, because this year, the tracks which I expected to do well, I've struggled the most. And the tracks where I thought I was going to struggle, I've actually had a really good time. So it's been a bit funny. But the fast flowing tracks I seem to be able to adapt to a lot quicker, and it's a little bit easier. I have struggled at some of the more hard braking tracks like Lamar, like with all the stop and goes and that. I think a lot of it had to do, I've been struggling with the front end feeling on the bike. So under those hard braking zones, especially when you're arriving at the end of a straight, like a really long straight, you're arriving at 300 and whatever, and you've got to brake super hard, super late, and get the bike stopped. I've been struggling a little bit with the feeling on the front of the bike. It's definitely improved a lot since like Lamar, which I struggled a lot with. But I feel like we still got room to improve, and slowly but surely I'm starting to gain that feeling from the front. The carbon brakes are obviously insane. The bike stops crazy. The tires they're a little bit special. You really got to get a good feel for them. The front locks all the time under braking, and I've spoken to my brother about this. I've spoken to Davi, the team. It's one of those things that you kind of get used to eventually. But I've always been a person that needs a lot of trust in the front end. I've always been a guy that if the front end's not working for me, I tend to struggle. So it's definitely taken a bit of time to get that feeling of the front end, and to try and bring my strong point into the bike, because I feel like throughout the years I've always been a really good late breaker, and I feel like I'm slowly but surely getting there now. And it is one of the good points on our bike, because like that is where we pass under the brakes. We're a little bit slower down the straights. So I'm trying to get that all set up now. Obviously, I have all the data and stuff from Fabio last year. He's a really late breaker. He brakes super hard, gets the bike stopped. So it's really good to look and see. But at the same time, I've tried to just plug in all his settings and stuff. But unfortunately, we're not built the same. He's French, I'm South African. It's not working.
That's a good way to put it. But it makes, to the general public, you think just put it in and it should work. But it's easier looking on the inside compared to the outside where you are battling. It just seems to be like, Fabio has more experience on the bike, obviously, and he's just able, like you said, to brake deeper and brake harder and just and make that work. So what kind of changes are you looking at doing in your riding now going for the rest of the season? I mean, when you plug those settings in, is it more suspension setup that you guys are battling with? From the inside, what I've kind of picked up on, it's, the electronics. Sometimes the traction's kicking in too much, too little. The engine braking's too much, too little. I mean, there's so much to work from the electronic side before you even get to suspension side.
Yeah, I picked up pretty quickly at the beginning of this year that you can change the bike from its nose to its arse, vice versa. But if the electronics and stuff aren't right, you won't feel the difference. Like, obviously you feel a difference, but I mean, like, your lap time could be the same. So I've really been trying to learn and understand a lot more about all the electronics. There's so much you can play with, and it's also just how to get it across to the guys. I'm obviously feeling these things for the first time, and I don't know how to explain in which direction I need to go. Like I can remember, I think it was Barcelona qualifying, if I came in after the first stop, changed the tire, and I told the guys, "Oh, we need much more traction in this area. Please kick it up there." Perfect. Changed it quickly. Went out to the second tire. I went exactly the wrong way. I just needed less. But obviously, it was things like that need to happen to be able to learn, to be able to understand it. And I feel like my guys are starting to. Obviously had a lot to learn themselves. I mean, my data guy who does all the electronics came up from Moto3 with me. So he's been behind the computer day and night learning, as well as I am out there riding and learning. So I feel like everybody's starting to understand everything, especially the way I ride, because as well, like we said, we just plug those things in, but if it's not working, it's not working. So yeah, they're starting to get an understanding of how I like things and what suits my riding style. And yeah, slowly but surely, once we get the electronics more dialed in, then you can definitely start working on the bike setup a bit more, because if that's not right, it definitely does affect what you feel, because if you're putting power and stuff in the wrong place, it can make that bike unrideable.
Yeah, it really is. I say it time and time again, MotoGP's become about these small margins, from bike setup to braking to getting on the throttle to missing the apex. But, when we'd say, oh, Brad or Darren's missing the apex, people, you assume it's by this massive margin, but it's this tiny little thing. That tiny little margin in MotoGP makes such a big difference. We're going to throw a fan question in here. Devon Hassanbrook, is Daz quicker this year, lap time wise, than VR46? I know going into every race, you guys, as soon as you get there on a Thursday, you've got 16 million sheets of paper waiting for you. You analyze all the times, all the sectors, and everything. And in most cases so far this year that I've seen, you've proven yourself in many areas.
Yeah, it's funny. Like Mugello was quite a good ride for me, but I just missed out on the points. I finished 16. Unfortunately, I had the long lap, which cost me a couple seconds, and I feel like if I didn't have that, I might have maybe got into the points. But that race, even with the long lap, I think I was quite a couple seconds faster than Rossi last year, like the total time after all the laps. And obviously the lap time was faster, but he finished 10th at last year, So I look at that and I'm like, geez, I've gone faster than that. I would have been ahead of him by, I don't know, a couple seconds or whatever. And he finished 10th and yeah, I'm 16th, So it just goes to show how tight it is. That every year it's getting more and more close. There's the manufacturers, there's no shit bike on the grid right now. Everybody's out there absolutely on the limit, and you can see it, like when fast guys have a rough day. Like when Brad has a tough day, all of a sudden I find myself in amongst him in the session, and I'm like, geez, what's going on here? So yeah, it's really tight, and if you're not on the top of your game, you find yourself at the back real quick.
It is. It's relentless and it's ruthless, that paddock. It really is. But I mean, you have surprised yourself in many ways. If, like I said, if you look at especially Catalunya and Mugello, I mean, even the team, I've never seen Razlan with a bigger smile on his face than after Catalunya and Mugello, because you really did surprise a lot of people. I mean, how confidence inspiring is it for you, knowing this massive step that you've taken from Moto3 to MotoGP within 6 months? You're riding with and beating the likes of Dovi and Morbidelli, and really putting yourself in the mix with Moto2 World Champions Remy Gardner, Raul Fernandez, the next best thing, and here you are making that jump and you battling with them week in, week out, and beating them more often than not.
Yeah, it's been good. I think a lot of people didn't expect it. I've always believed in myself. I always go out, give my absolute best, and when I'm fighting in amongst them, I don't look at them on a pedestal or anything. I look at them like, okay, we're in here together. We're all rookies in that. I've got just as much of a chance as you do, so I go and just try my absolute best. And yeah, it is cool to fight against like the likes of Morbidelli. He's done amazing things. I know he's struggling at the moment, but it is what it is. If he could have done something by now, I'm sure he would have. So yeah, it's really cool to be able to fight against them, and yeah, it's awesome. I mean, sometimes I have to remind myself when things are going tough and I'm a little bit frustrated and that, I just have to look around and say, geez, look who you're riding against, look where you are. This is what you dreamt of your whole life. Just enjoy it, and the more you enjoy it, the faster you go.
That's a good way to approach it, because it's the only way you can really approach it. Another fan question here, Willem Otten. It's a very good question. It's a big one for MotoGP. How much of tire pressure makes a difference? And I know it's been quite a talked about subject within the paddock this year, because there's this tire pressure limit that everyone's supposed to stick to, but it seems like it's hardly ever stuck to, because there's a loophole in the rules. But I mean, have you ever been in the situation where your front tire has overheated by that 0.1 of a bar? And what kind of difference does that make front and rear if the tire pressures are just slightly out?
Yeah, so the rule is you're not supposed to go under 1.9 in the front, but it's such a tricky thing, because you can start the race as low as like 1.6 and it could go up to 2 bar if you're in the group behind the guys, because there's no air flowing over it and stuff like that. And it really, really, really plays a big role in things. If you just go over like 2.1, it feels like you've got a balloon in the front tire. It's horrible. You lose so much feeling. It's so easy to crash. Like I explained, that locking feeling, the bike locks all the time under braking, and when that pressure goes up, it just locks like non-stop, and it's so easy to lock completely up straight and tuck the front. And yeah, you just lose so much feeling when the pressure goes high, and it's really tricky in the races, because like Sachsenring was super, super hot, and the temperature on race day was much higher than what it had been throughout the weekend. So then you rock up to the race, they've got everything set to where they think they know what it's going to be like. And then let's say you get out and you're on your own the whole race, it might be under what it's supposed to be, and then it's also not that great. So there's a very narrow window of where it works really well, and it's really tough to get inside that window. And it plays a big role in a lot of guys' races, because if you get stuck behind somebody and you've basically planned to get out on your own, it can change things up real quick, and it can become a real problem.
So, we know that there's these 8 Ducatis or 9 Ducatis sometimes on the grid, and we know how good the bike is. Simon Crafos has ridden it at Misano and says it's effing awesome and stuff. Riding behind that Ducati, we're going to use the Ducati for now, because we know that Fabio's really making the Yamaha work, and we know the struggles of Brad and the KTM. But those Ducatis were the likes of Big Zeki, DJ Antonio, your fellow rookies there. When you're behind them, I mean, you're on the older Yamaha. Is it such, where do they make up all the time? Because when I watch trackside, I watch you and I see on the braking you're good, corner entry is really good. To me, it just seems when those Ducatis get on, the electronics are just releasing the bike a lot more compared to all the other bikes. The Ducati just, it hooks up and it just goes. Are you finding that the hardest, to try and battle with the likes of DJ Antonio and the fellow Ducati guys? You're making all this time up on the brakes, corner speed, but once those things get hooked up, it's just impossible to stay with them.
Yeah, it's the one thing I've found with the Yamaha this year is like really small corners, tight corners where you're coming on in first or second gear. I feel like sometimes we're missing a little bit of mechanical grip, and as hard as I'm trying to lay the power down, it hasn't got the grip to lay it down, and then the electronics and that holds you back. And I've tried a lot of things to try and gain that grip, but I just haven't been able to find it. And I feel like when I head more in that direction, I don't necessarily gain anything, and then I lose a lot of the front end feeling. So right now I've been focusing more on the front end feeling, because when I gain front end feeling, at least I win a bit of time there. Whereas when I try and get more grip, it doesn't really win much time. Whereas I feel like the Ducatis lay the power down really well. They seem to have a lot of grip on the exit of those really tight corners. And obviously they're just really fast. Those bikes are super fast, When we get nice flowing corners and we roll in on like third, fourth gear, and if I get really, really right on the back tail piece, I feel like I can almost stay in the slipstream, in a sense. But those bikes, they've got the power. If somebody gets behind you and they get in your slip, they might blow past you. And I can remember the first time in Malaysia, I'd done the rookies pre-season shakedown test or whatever. I did 2 days or something, and then all the boys are rocked up, and I went out first session with all the boys. Yes, I'm tucked in, going down the back straight, hook 6 gear, and this guy comes flying past me. I'm like, what was that? It was a Ducati.
Yeah, those Ducatis are ridiculously fast. I can visibly see it from the side of the track. You just get so much more information from the side of the track. So this big jump from Moto 3 to Moto GP is not just in terms of motorcycle. Last year I remember your Moto 3 in your little truck with your tiny little space, little room that you had. You had one little piece of almost like a post-it saying, right, at 4 o'clock you've got to go talk to someone. Now you go in the back of your Moto GP truck, you've almost got like a 16-page novel of this time Monster, this time Monster Energy, this time Speed Week, this time Rob Motor Rider Wall, this time this. I mean, how big is that jump now with media commitments and sponsor commitments and never mind the jump from the bike in Moto 3 to Moto GP, but just all your other commitments and being a Moto GP rider, being recognized as a Moto GP rider now.
Yeah, it's crazy. There's all of a sudden a lot less time in a day. I can remember in Moto 3, I would have plenty of time. Some days I'd even catch like a 30-40 minute power nap during the day just to be ready for FP2 to waste a little bit of time. But now there's no such thing. There's a lot of media stuff to do, starting on sometimes Wednesday, but Thursday is packed with it. And every day we've got stuff to do, and there's obviously certain time slots which you have to stick to. Everybody's given their time, and that's it. You go there, do this at that time. You've got to be here at this time, and there's a lot more obligations to do with media stuff. For MotoGP, you've got to go to the fan zones, or you've got to go to the VIP village, or whatever. And it's tricky because during the race weekend, you're trying to be so focused on your riding and stuff, and then sometimes you'll come in after like a FP2 session, which is really important, and then you've only got 15 minutes to debrief and you've got to be at TV. So you do your most important things that you need to get across to the guys, go do your TV, and then when you've got another chance, you get back in the garage. And it's tricky, unfortunately, it is what it is. The team have the schedule and they can see exactly where I am at what time. So they know that I'm not actually avoiding the garage. It's just that I haven't got a chance to get back there. But the days are longer now in MotoGP for sure. I find myself leaving the track at like 9-10 o'clock at night, because when everything's finally settled and done, you end up chatting to your boys for a good 20-30 minutes, just running over the plans for the next day and what we're going to change and what we're working on for the following day and that.
Yeah, shame. So Darren's press officer in the team is a really cool chick by the name of Maria. And whenever she knocks on Darren's door, she opens it slightly, pops her head in. Darren looks at her and like kind of does a, oh, for goodness sake, what do you want? Like, please, Darren, you've got to come with me. It's like such a funny thing to watch. This press officer waiting to ask Darren to please just come to the next press or whatever he's got to do. So you can understand now, Darren, why in Moto 3 you very much did it yourself. You had the time, you took your helmet, you did this, you did your leathers because you had the spare time. A lot of people have asked me, why do MotoGP riders, like Rossi and them, have their Uchios and their guys? Why do they stay at the track and that? It's just because if I look at, even with Brad, the demand and the commitment to be a MotoGP rider, like you said, you don't have this time to do your 20-minute power nap. I think it was Catalunya Mugello. You had that like 10-minute little power nap, and you were a different person because you woke up and you hadn't had a power nap for so long. You don't stretch for that 1 minute. I can't remember where it was, but you felt like you didn't stretch long enough because you were rushed, and you went out on the bike, came back, and you felt like you had pulled a muscle in your arm. This MotoGP commitment, it's just a completely different world compared to the rest of any kind of racing you have ever done and ever will.
Yeah, 100%. And the thing is now with the spectators back in that, obviously I try and be as friendly and accommodating as I can for everybody. But, during the day, you want to go and drop your helmet off quick and you've only got 10 minutes to do it. And it's like a, I don't know, 8-minute walk. then by the time you get there and back with all the spectators and stuff and all the fans coming up to you for photos and having a chat and you see this person, that person, yeah, then you miss your time and you're late, So I think that's also got a lot to do with it. Unfortunately, it's not that easy to get in and around the paddock. I think you barely see the riders floating around, maybe at the end of the day once everything's cooled down. But yeah, during the day, it's really nice to have somebody there to help you out and take your stuff, get it sorted, because yeah, I mean, that's obviously the most important stuff is your riding gear. You need it all dialed in, and that's why we've got these amazing trackside services for us with Ara, with Reva, TCX, everything like that. And they make sure that everything's dialed in, but you have to get your stuff there. And yeah, so it definitely does help to have Uncle Rob rolling around.
Yeah, I can tell you now. Listen, I've finally got calves after 40 years in my life. I finally got calves, and it's because I've had to walk. I try and tell people I went to Brands at British Superbikes on Sunday, and I walked with my one mate. We walked 14 Ks, and he was like, "Geez, that's exhausting." I'm like, "Bud, you must try Thursday, Friday, and a Saturday and a Sunday at MotoGP, where you walk like 100 Ks in those 4 days." Know about it then. Another fan question. We're going to go back to South Africa a little bit, Joe. A lot of people have asked me this question about, you guys riding at Kyalami. How's it, guys? How did your lap times compare to Brad around Kyalami the other day? And what was the difference in your bikes other than the obvious? All the best for the second half of the season, hoping for a GP deal to come through. So obviously, you're not allowed riding a full-blown World Superbike Yamaha R1. You're very much production-based around Kyalami. Lap time wise on your R1, I know you guys run pretty competitive there, and then your lap times compared to Brad riding his production based bike, which we won't say what it is, and then compared to what he kind of managed on a MotoGP bike.
So comparing to the MotoGP bike, I think it was like around 4 seconds or so, give or take, difference. Yeah, my R1 that I ride back home is very much standard. It's got some internals in the forks and a rear shock and that. But yeah, we're not allowed to ride anything with like full electronics on it or anything similar to what we race. When I was back home, I rode on the Michelins, I can't remember what they're called, something cups, which was the first time for me. It's I think quite a street tire compared to what I'm used to. So yeah, it was a bit different, but it was good. I mean, I obviously enjoy riding back home in South Africa. It's super cool to get to ride around Kyalami and get to spin some laps there when I'm home. So yeah, I really enjoyed it. And yeah, I mean, Brad normally spins laps with me. He's also got a training bike back home, but because he was busy with all the MotoGP stuff, so I didn't get to spin laps with him. But normally we're pretty similar on our training bikes. Tomorrow we're going to ride Supermoto, so I'll let you guys know. Plan on smoking him, at least trying to. But yeah, on a training bike, I mean, it's much easier on like a Supermoto to find the limit. It's a lot easier for anybody to be fast on a Supermoto, whereas on a MotoGP bike, there's so many different details to dial in that if you haven't got just one little thing dialed, there can be quite a big difference. So yeah, let's see what happens.
Let's have a look here. So another fan question here from a Carlos Ferraz question. How did it end when you were in Team KTM IO? Was it good enough to still have the door open with KTM, thinking Tech 3? Now, a lot of people have asked me this, if this RNF Aprilia deal doesn't come off, what chances Darryn have with Tech 3 KTM? It's a lot of people have been waiting for this question, and it's kind of the elephant in the room. What is happening? Are you in talks? What is happening? Do you know anything? Can you say anything about next year? Is it RNF Aprilia? Is it Tech 3? Is it Moto 2? So first of all, the KTM IO question, how's that relationship and a return to KTM possibly on the cards? And then any plans for 2023 so far?
Yeah, so obviously I spent a year in Red Bull KTM IO, and unfortunately it didn't work out as planned. I really struggled in the first 3 quarters of the season. I really struggled, and things had changed up a little bit. It became a one-bike team. I was the only guy in there. I'd come off an injury the year before where I'd missed like 5 or 6 races, finishing in like 2017. And I rocked up into 2018 expecting to just be right in the front, and I wasn't. And yeah, I mean, at the end of the year, we had some good results together and we had a really good time. But at that point, it was too late. You know, things had already we'd already decided to part ways, and I was moving on to a different team and that. But I wouldn't say that things ended badly or anything. You know, I still see Aki around in the paddock, and obviously all the KTM people. I rode KTM's for another 2 years after that, just in different teams. So obviously saw them, and Brad's riding for them in MotoGP. I spent a lot of time in his box over the last couple of years. When I was floating around in Moto3, I'd always go in there and say how's it to everybody. And yeah, you know, I think our relationship is all good, but I don't see it right now as an option. I think their riders' seats are filled already, from what I understand. But yeah, obviously I'm open for anything. But if that's the direction that I was heading in, and it was a door that was open, I'd more than gladly take it again. But yeah, right now I would love to stay where I am. I feel like I like my team a lot, and I'm getting along well with them, and I'm slowly but surely learning on that. Obviously, they're changing to Aprilia, which looks to be like a really good bike right now from the outside. And I mean, it would be a really, really good for me to jump on an Aprilia and give it a try. But we're gonna have to see. As of right now, I'm still waiting to see in which direction we're going. If I can't stay in MotoGP, obviously my first priority to go to Moto2, as seeing as I haven't been there yet. But yeah, like I said, I'd love to stay where I am. Obviously, that's the main goal. You know, you get to MotoGP, you want to stay there for as long as you can. But with everything going on this year, it's made things a little bit more tricky than what I would like to have hoped for, with Suzuki pulling out, and it looks like there's going to be 2 less bikes on the grid. You know, there's already 2 riders without bikes, and then there's still nobody's come up. So let's see what happens. You know, I'm really still keeping positive, and I think I should know a lot more now this weekend, and next weekend in Silverstone. Obviously my manager will be there. It's been a summer break. I think everybody will have more of a direction now, and yeah, let's see what happens, and we just take it from there.
Yeah, Des, you know what? We've spoken about it a couple of times, and you know, sometimes that you've done a lot of interviews with media, and media have blown it up saying, you know, taking a small sentence or this Moto2, and Darren's quite happy to go back to Moto2 over MotoGP. You know, they spin the stories as they do for clickbait and that, you know, but I personally think, and I often try and say this, you know, I take my fan cap off and I put my journalist and my professional cap on, and I look at the numbers. And if you look at the numbers and what you've achieved so far in MotoGP, considering your jump from Moto3 this year, you've certainly proved a lot of people wrong. And I think deep down, you know that. As I said at the start of the show, I think you know that there's been a lot of highs. There's also been a lot of lows, as we expected coming, you know, from the jump from Moto3. But certainly you've proved a lot of people wrong. And I've seen it in the paddock. I've heard it from people in the paddock. They haven't maybe come out and said it publicly, but certainly within the paddock, they've said it. So, yeah, I think you've done more than enough to prove your point and prove that you are worthy of a MotoGP ride. However, I do look at it as if, as you said, if you can't get in MotoGP, first prize would be to be in a good team in Moto2, because there's no doubt that you can take now what you've learned from your big bike experience, not only riding a MotoGP bike, but your R1 back here in South Africa, bring that back to Moto2. And I have no doubt that you will climb on a Moto2 bike, if you were to climb on a Moto2 bike, and just smoke them. And in a way, be nice to see you running at the front end of a field battling for wins, because ultimately that's what you want to do. And if you were to make that step, you would definitely do that. So I don't think it's all doom and gloom. I think there's no reason why you shouldn't be in the running for a MotoGP spot. Like you said, there's still the possibility of that. But I don't think we need to look at it, you know, as it's the end of the world if it doesn't happen. I think there's a lot of Moto2 teams that would be dying to have you, would be chasing your signature. I'm pretty sure Bob, your manager, Bob Moore, just didn't have a summer break at all, because I'm pretty sure he's one of the hardest working men. He looks after you, Brad, and a couple of other riders in the paddock as well. So no doubt, knowing the kind of person that Bob Moore is, that he is flat out working on it. But Des, going forward now, heading into Silverstone, I think Silverstone's going to be a tough one. It looks like one of those tracks that's got a bit of fast flowing, but it's also got the tricky side with the hard braking and stuff as well. But after that, there's a couple of tracks that, you know, have Darryn Binder's name on it. For sure, one of them, and it's one that Brad hasn't even ridden a MotoGP bike around. A lot of people haven't. Well, a lot of people haven't ridden a motorbike around there in a long time. But you must be looking at that Phillip Island and kind of rubbing your hands together. Riding a MotoGP bike around Phillip Island is going to be spectacular.
Yeah, I think Silverstone can always be a tricky one, even with the weather as well. You never know whether it's going to be sunshine or rain, and it's a track that I've recently started to enjoy since they resurfaced it a couple of years ago and got rid of a couple of the bumps. In Moto3, I always enjoyed it. It was a little bit tricky for me. There's a couple long straights, and I suffered a little bit sometimes when you come onto those long straights and out of a tight corner. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to getting there out there on the MotoGP bike. I just want to start the second half of the season and just keep on building off where I left off before the break, sorry. And yeah, there's so many tracks that I just can't wait to get to on a MotoGP bike. Phillip Island is definitely on the top of the list. That's been my favorite track since my first year in World Championship. That track it's just insane. It can be so tricky and so nasty to you at the same time, but I just love it when the sun shines in and the weather's good. It's such a fast flowing track, and I think it's going to suit me quite well on this bike, and I'm really looking forward to it. And as well, we haven't been there for 3 years now, I think. So yeah, I just can't wait to do the whole away races, we call them, the Asian tour, because we haven't done it in a while. And although it's racing, it's almost like a mini holiday, you know, every week in a different country, and there's super cool things to do in each country, you know, like Japan. One of the things, I don't know why, but every time I go to Japan, I'll end up going to like a top golf place, and I do it every year. So I'm going to do the same thing this year when I get there, and hope that it keeps on keeping my luck good there. I really enjoy Japan. I enjoy Australia, Malaysia. I've been there now. I did 5 days of testing there at the beginning of the year. I've learned so much now from there. Now I just can't wait to get back there and see what I'm able to do on a track like that now that I've got a little bit more experience, because when I was there for the testing, I really enjoyed that track. It was really fun to ride, and I think now that I've got a couple more things under my belt, and by the time I get there, I'll know even more, because that's the second last race. So really excited for that. It'll be the home race for my team, so that'll be pretty cool. It's going to be a busy one for sure.
So now, you answered this question for all the fans that came to the meet and greet, but just answer it for the worldwide public that's watching you. How awesome was that feeling, and how was your emotion in Mandalika in the rain when you shoved it on the inside of your brother and you were dicing with Spargo, Paul Spargo, Brad Binder, and all these guys for that top 10? I mean, try and rewind back to that and give us that emotion that was happening in that race.
Yeah, that was a real crazy day. You know, I hadn't really ridden a MotoGP bike in the full rain yet. I'd gone out in Mandalika in like half conditions and done like 3 or 4 laps on wet, but the track was basically dry already. So when it started raining, I was like, geez, this is it, you know, drop me right in the deep end. Carbon brakes in the rain, full wets, pouring with rain, let's go, straight off race. So delayed and delayed and delayed, and you're sitting there waiting, and you know, and it's just like, I just want to go, you know. And eventually we finally got to do the race, and I pulled off in the first lap. I was really quite nervous, you know. I didn't know what to expect. You know, you pull off and the brakes aren't warm yet, and you're pulling them and you're like, oh gosh, they're going to nip at some point and it's going to lock. And I was really quite scared, but lap by lap I just started feeling better and better and better, and the amount of grip that track had and the way you could ride in the rain was insane. I mean, I've got a photo of me with my elbow down in the rain. I couldn't believe it. And yeah, I just started passing people, you know, and catching up, passing. I just got faster and faster and faster. And before I knew it, I could see right in the distance there was a KTM, and I was like, oh, I hope this is Brad. I hope it's him, man. I was chasing him. I finally caught up to him, and I was like, oh, I felt much quicker than him at the time, you know. So I got past him, and it's funny because like when I rewatch the race back now, everybody I caught up to from like quite a little way back, caught up past him, caught up to the next guy. But every guy that I passed, it's like I flicked the switch, because every single one of them woke up and just hooked onto me. And by the end of the race, I pulled together quite a group. And I passed my brother, and I thought, you know, that's it. He looked like he was really struggling in the race. His ride height device wasn't working or something. And when I passed him, I was like, yep, that's the end of him. You know, he's gone. And I think with like 2 or 3 laps to go, the next thing, somebody sticks it up the inside of me. I have a look over to see it is, and it's Brad. I'm like, geez, where'd you come from? It was awesome. I wish I had a few more laps to try and stick another move on him, but it was really fun. And, you know, I came in and it didn't really sink in for a while. You know, I had to rewatch the race back, and obviously it was a great result in that, and I knew that it wasn't always going to be that easy and whatnot. But looking back now, I really enjoyed it. I had some fun, and I wish that I could have a couple more races like that this year. That'll be top of the list.
I'm sure there will be a couple more of those before the end of the season. Daz, last question in from a fan here, and it's probably one of the most important questions that you'll ever answer in your entire life. Joe Alves, ask Darryn if he misses Midwall.
Jeez, I actually do miss Midwall. It's been a long time since I've ridden around Midwall, but growing up, that was probably the track I spent the most laps on. I remember going there on afternoons after school. Sometimes my dad would be like, oh, we're going practicing on our way to Midwall. I think I probably did my first race there. I don't actually know. I could be wrong, but I feel like it was Midwall. I've got good memories from there. I really enjoyed it, and it would actually be really cool to go back there and spin some laps. I remember that was like the first place I ever rode a GP 125, which was like back in the day I was riding 50s and 150s. It was like going from Moto3 to MotoGP back then, you know. Climbed on this 125. It was a nice old one my dad pulled out of his collection for us to spin a few laps on, but it was absolutely awesome, you know. So I miss that place.
Well, Daz, thank you so much again, my man, for taking the time out. You know, I'm sure if you could have seen all the comments down here, everyone is so proud of the job you're doing. Everyone is behind you all the way. They're just rooting for you to get, you know, another chance at MotoGP. There's no reason why you shouldn't be able to. But even if that doesn't happen, you've earned the respect from so many people, you know, not even just in South Africa, outside of South Africa, in the paddock. A lot of top people. Speaking to Simon Crayfar the other night, you know, he's very impressed with what you've done. Speaking to a lot of people in the paddock, you know, I can hear you've really raised a lot of eyebrows. You've proven a lot of people wrong, not only with what you've done on the bike, but your attitude, the way you've presented yourself, the way you've approached the whole Moto3 to MotoGP ride. You really have done a fantastic job, and you've got a lot of support. You've got all of us behind you. We love the job you're doing, and just keep that Darryn Binder smile coming, because the more we see that, the more we love it. And thank you from a personal side again for entertaining me, you and Zan for having me in your meeting, and for taking the time out to do this interview, man. Really, really appreciate it.
Thanks to you, Uncle Rob. I always appreciate it. Thanks to all the supporters, you know. It goes a long way. It was really cool to get to catch up with some of them at the meet and greet and that. And I'm going to go out there and do my best to try and finish the season off as strong as I can. And whatever comes my way, we'll grab it with both hands and make the absolute most of it. And catch you in just over a week.
I will see you in Silverstone, ready to help wherever I can. Thanks again, Daz. Get your rest now, man. Rest up and get yourself ready for Silverstone next weekend.
Awesome. Thanks to you. Cheers, everyone.
Ciao, my buds.